Hello, travelers and monster catchers abound. I'm Stella Ferris, and you've crash landed on the Monster Catchers Journal podcast. Welcome. It happened after the battle with Thorn-Edge Glyph. I was already emotionally and physically drained, trudging through the silver fog curling around the outer cliffs of the vapor spires. That's when I saw it, hovering like a thundercloud frozen in mid-roar. Wisps curled from its vaporous form, and crystalline pressure spikes jutted out like frozen lights. Cloudburst. Not born from emotion, not born from darkness or light. Cloudburst is a condensation glyph, a being formed from the natural condensation of forgotten vapors, drifting through the higher layers of the world. Not sorrow, not joy, just the unspoken. The thoughts too light to anchor, too faint to remember. Over time, they gather, condensed, and birth him. It didn't see me with malice. It didn't feel at all. But its presence stirred pressure. Rain began to fall, acidic and strange, a byproduct of its raw chemistry. It wasn't evil, just unstable, a walking imbalance of elements looking for structure. I dropped to one knee, even Orabeak bristled beside me. It wasn't words I heard, it was static, like whispers from books never written. But I remembered something Professor Orion told me once. Some glyphs aren't trying to hurt you, they're trying to make sense of what they are. So I stood up, drenched, trembling, but calm. I am Stella Ferris, I said, and I catch monsters not because I control them, but because I understand them. The acid rain began to evaporate. Cloudburst pressure waves slowed. Its form destabilized, not in fear, but in surrender. I summoned a containment ring, not with fire or light, but with a glyph of my own design. Hopebind. Not born of hope, but shaped by it. A stabilizer, a bond. It lashed around Cloudburst's limbs, like mist held in a perfect prism. The condensation calmed, the storm settled. When I opened the capsule, there he was, Cloudburst. You know, people always ask me how I managed to contain Cloudburst without destroying it. The answer? I didn't fight harder. I used a Hopebind. Hopebinds are rare and can be crafted. Not every glyph hunter has one, and even fewer understand them. They're not fighters or elemental brawlers. They're glyphids. Not full glyphids, but glyphids, fragments of a veil itself, shaped by deep intention. Some call them harmony sigils, others say they're echoes of the first glyphids ever drawn into existence. I just call mine Hopebind. Physically, a Hopebind appears as a glowing, hovering ring of geometric symbols, runes that constantly shift shapes and language. It hovers like a halo, pulsing with soft, natural, and neutral light. Not cold, not warm, just still. Around it spirals a faint hum like wind passing through crystals. Its center is empty, but when activated, the ring expands into a full circle, a containment seal that locks onto unstable glyphs and dampens their surges. But it's more than a trap. A Hopebind doesn't just suppress, it stabilizes. It harmonizes the chaotic energy around inside the volatile or unformed glyphs, allowing them to adapt, learn, and take form without hurting themselves or others. Cloudburst was unraveling when I met him, not because he was evil, but because he wasn't finished yet. His existence was like a half-formed cloud, trying to carry lightning. He needed something to anchor him. Hopebind gave him that. Professor Orion used to say, Hopebinds are the unspoken answer to fear, not because you erase it, but because they give it shape. a shape you can grow from. He said this only after the fact that I created the Hopebind. Hopebinds don't come from love, hope, or light, despite the name. They aren't emotional or anything like that at all. Their power lies in stability, in providing structure where there's chaos, from where there's fog, silence where there's static. Form where there's fog. They don't fix the glyphs. They give them space to become whole. To bind is not to chain, it is to hold until balance returns. Anyways, as I was saying in the story, I summoned the Hopebind, a glowing ring of shifting runes orbiting me like a moon around a storm. The Hopebind expanded, radiating neutral pulses, encircled Cloudburst, volatile core. The rain slowed, the spikes dissolved into mist for 60 seconds. He was still held, stable, his body flickering between forms. Cloudstorm shimmered, as if trying to decide who or what he was. But then the pressure returned. Hopebind cracked. One glyph shattered like ice. The containment ring sparkled, flickering, and then Cloudburst broke free. The acid rain resumed, but now I understood it better. It wasn't hatred, it wasn't fear, it was disorder. Hopebind had bought me a moment not to win, but to witness. That 1 minute gave me everything I needed. I stepped forward unafraid. I'm Stella Ferris, I said again, and I don't bind monsters to control them. I meet them in the chaos and bring them forward. This time I didn't use containment, I used connection. Cloudburst stilled again, not because I trapped him, but because he let me catch him. So I brought Cloudburst back to the sanctuary, contained, breathing mist inside his capsule like a dream, trying to escape. I thought they'd be proud. Professor Orion was already waiting, his arms crossed, back straight, jaw tighter than usual. Beside him stood Professor Lang, yes, that Lang, genius, prodigy, the boy who graduated from Glyph Sciences at 9 years old, and now teaches full-time. He's my age and already a legend. But the look on their faces, not pride, not even concern, disappointment. You shouldn't have gone into the Vapor Spires alone, Orion said flatly. I wasn't alone, Orabeak was with me, I replied. Lang shook his head, voice sharp but calm. Orabeak isn't a stabilizer, and just because you created Hopebind doesn't mean you're immune to risk. Cloudburst is unstable. You barely contained him. I swallowed the lump in my throat, but I did. He broke free of Hopebind, yes, but I reached him another way. He let me catch him. He chose to bond. Lang raised a brow. And that makes him safe? Or you qualified to decide what happens next? He's not evil, I shouted, louder than I meant to. He's confused. I was confused too when I first. Orion raised a hand, quiet. Fell like a log. Quiet fell like fog. We're not angry because you failed, he said softly. We're upset because you succeeded and you don't see the cost. Before I could protest, Lang stepped forward, his gloved hand extended, waiting. Sorry, Stella Ferris, he said, but Cloudburst is being transferred to the containment wing. You can't keep him. He's too dangerous. You'll understand someday. I stood there frozen, the capsule heavy in my hands. Please don't do this, I whispered. But they took him. The capsule left my fingers like steam, dissipating into cold air. Cloudburst didn't make a sound. He didn't fight. He just stared through the mist with eyes like silent thunder. I shouldn't be recording this. Orion would call it evidence. Lang would call it grounds for expulsion. But if I don't tell the truth, who will? I was angry. No, furious. Lang loved seeing the glyphs I caught. He used to say I had instincts better than in any textbook. Every time I walked through those doors, he'd rush over with questions, theories, praise. But after Cloudburst, that joy was gone. All I saw in his eyes was fear. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling of my dorm room until the stars above me turned to fog in my vision. If I couldn't have Cloudburst, if they were going to lock him away like some wild mistake, then maybe no one should have him. I used an override key I wasn't supposed to still have. I snuck through the garden wing, slipped past the Whisper Vault, and into the lower labs of Luan Academy. The place was quiet, too quiet. They had locked Cloudburst behind triple sigil seals. But I knew the code system. I'd studied it. I opened the capsule. "Come on, boy," I whispered. "We're leaving." But something was off. He didn't float to me like before. He didn't swirl in that sleepy spiral he always did when calm. He stared. His vapor pulsed dark at the edges. He was hurt. Not physically. Betrayed. And then the pressure dropped. He screamed a soundless internal scream, and suddenly the air was thick with acidic rain and steam. Lights burst. Glass shattered. His cloud form expanded, swallowing the room in the spiral of fog and static. Alarms welled across the academy. Cloudburst, no, stop! I shouted. But it was too late. I'd let him loose without stabilizing him. I'd told myself he'd be happy, that he'd want freedom. But all he wanted was to understand why I gave him up. He tore through 3 floors in under 2 minutes. Smashed containment tanks. Shorted Glyph stabilizers. I tried to reach him, but he wouldn't look at me. He was Cloud Storm Fury. And this time, he wasn't asking permission. I remember the sirens. I remember the smell of ozone and burning paper. I remember Cloudburst eyes wide, confused, trembling with static. And then light. Like a bolt of sky piercing straight through me. Pain, not quiet. It was more like being unplugged from existence. I heard someone screaming my name. I think it was Lang or Orion, and then nothing but fog. 6 months later, the fog began to lift. First sound, then light, then the weight of my own breathing. I opened my eyes to a quiet, sterile room bathed in the glow of artificial starlight. Machines beeped in steady rhythm. My body was thin, my arms weak. I couldn't even lift my head, but I could hear them, Orion and Lang at the foot of my bed. You should have died," Orion said quietly. No warmth, no triumph at my survival. Just that. I blinked. Lang stood beside me, arms crossed, face pale and rigid. "You broke into the academy," he said. "You released an unstable glyph into a populated research facility. You endangered everyone, including yourself." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry like sand and silence, and conspired to seal it shut. "Cloudburst almost killed you," Orion continued, "and when we arrived you were already unconscious. Your nervous system overloaded from direct atmospheric shock. He didn't understand what he was doing, but you should have." Lang stepped closer, voice lower now, strained. "I begged them to let you keep studying. I fought for you after the Thorn Edge hunt, but you crossed a line, Stella Ferris. You betrayed the trust we gave you." The air was heavier than Cloudburst's storm. "But he's okay," I rasped, barely audible. Orion hesitated. "We stabilized him, barely. He's in deep stasis. We're still studying him carefully." Lang added, "He's not your partner anymore, and you're no longer allowed near containment labs without full supervision." Silence, just the beeping machines between us. "You could have died," Orion said again. "And for what?" I couldn't answer because the truth was I didn't know anymore. Orion didn't leave the room for a long time after Lang stormed out. He just stood at the window, arms folded behind his back, staring into the artificial sky beyond the hospital glass. I wanted to curl into the sheets and disappear, but I had to say it. Even if my voice cracked, even if it didn't fix anything. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I don't know why I was so reckless. I can't even come up with an answer. I choked. My thoughts burned. My eyes did too. I wanted to justify it, wrap it up in something smart, something statistic. But there was no strategy in what I did, only fear and desperation. Orion finally turned to me. His expression was unreadable. Stelliferous, he said, his voice calm but cold. I've trained glyph catchers for over 30 years. I've seen arrogance, impulsiveness, greed. But what you did wasn't about pride, he paused. It was about pain. I looked down at my hands, shaking, thin, still not healed. I thought he needed me, I murmured. That I could reach him, that if I didn't save him, no one would. Orion sighed, and the weight of it filled the room. He stepped forward, closer now, until he was beside my bed. You have potential beyond most of the students here. Maybe even beyond Ling, he said softly. But you have to stop acting like you're alone. I blinked. So I'm not expelled? His brows arched. You think you get to sleep through 6 months of trauma and get expelled? No, Stelliferous, you're not done here. You're just on a very short leash. He sat in the chair next to me. Finally, the strictness gave way to something more tired, more human. Look, he said, you can keep studying at Luan. You will keep studying just as you always have. But if you want to catch any more glyphs, you come to me first. You don't go out alone. You don't improvise. Containment protocols. You don't sneak into vaults. He held my gaze. It's the only way to ensure your safety. I nodded slowly, eyes welling again. Not from shame this time, but relief. Okay, I said, I'll come to you every time. Orion rose again, giving a slow nod of his own. Good, because next time you might not wake up. And we wouldn't want that, now would we? That night, long after Orion left, he came back. Ling. I almost didn't recognize him without his lab coat, just a loose black hoodie, hands shoved deep into his pockets, head down like he was still debating whether he should even be here. He had flowers, nothing dramatic, just a messy bundle of sky blossoms, blue, star-shaped, slightly wilted from the cold night air. He handed them to me without a word. I blinked. Thanks. Lang looked at the floor. They're from the garden wing, the part that didn't get destroyed. Then he sat in the chair next to my bed and stared at his shoes, like they were about to give him advice. We didn't say anything for a while. The room hummed with medical machinery and moonlight. Finally, I broke the silence. You were really mad at me. He glanced up. I still am. Fair. He exhaled through his nose, half a laugh, half a sigh. But I'm also glad you're okay. That stopped me. Lang never said things like that to me before. He was always intellect first. Emotion buried under facts, charts, and containment models. I didn't think you'd visit, I admitted. I almost didn't, he said. I wasn't sure if I was ready to forgive you yet, or if you'd want to see me. I looked at him, really looked at him. For the first time, I didn't see a child genius or the youngest professor at Luan. I saw Lang, awkward, quiet, and trying. For the first time, I realized something. I liked him. Not the way I like stargazing or catching glyphs, but in that weird stomach-flipping, please don't look at me unless you're going to look forever kind of way. He stood to leave. I'll come by tomorrow, he mumbled. You probably won't be able to sleep anyway. Lang, I said before he reached the door. He looked back. I'm really glad it was you who was mad at me. I said, it means it matters. His ears turned red. He didn't say anything, just gave a faint nod and left. The flower sat on my bedside tray, still a little crooked. I smiled for the first time in 6 months. After Lang left, I stared at the flowers for a long time. The petals were uneven. One was torn. They weren't even the right color for recovery, but they were mine, picked for me by him. And that's when it hit me. Not like a lightning strike, not like Cloudburst, more like a quiet breeze through an open window I hadn't realized was opened. I had a crush on Lang, a real one, the kind that makes your heart kick when you hear that voice, The kind that rewrites the tension between arguments and praise into something soft, something that stays. I tried to laugh at myself. I just caused a campus-wide disaster and nearly died and broke 100 Academy rules, and now my brain wanted to flirt. But it wasn't a joke, it was real. And it had been hiding there for a while, between admiration and irritation, growing slowly under the surface. The genius boy who always challenged me, the professor who believed in my potential, even when I broke every rule in the book. The only one who brought me flowers when I woke up. Ling. I buried my face in my pillow and groaned so the ceiling wouldn't hear me. So, there I was, talking to myself like an idiot after Lang left. I'd propped his flowers up against the edge of the water cup. I was staring at them like they were some ancient riddle. Still, yet. I needed to solve, and my brain just cracked open. "I like Lang," I whispered, at first, then louder. "I like Lang!" And then because I'm me, and because 6 months of silence made me forget what volume is, "I like Ling!" It echoed off the hospital walls like a confession thrown into a canyon. That's when I heard it. A shift outside my door. The softest creak of a boot. I froze. My heart stopped. "Ling?" No one answered. I waited. Then I heard it. Quiet, almost polite footsteps retreating down the hall. He'd heard me. He was still there, and he walked away. I buried my face in my pillow again, but this time I didn't groan. I just stared into the darkness and whispered, "Of course he left." I don't know what that means. I don't know if he's scared or confused. Or maybe he doesn't feel the same. Or maybe he does. And he's just Ling, brilliant with theories, terrible with feelings. Either way, I said it, and I can't unsay it.